And now, for the week of August 21st, Adobe Photoshop TV is on the air.
Welcome to Adobe Photoshop TV from the National Association of Photoshop Professionals. And here's your hosts, the Photoshop guys, Scott Kelby, Dave Cross, and Matt Plaskowski.
Hi, welcome to another plush episode of Adobe Photoshop TV, brought to you by the National Association of Photoshop Professionals, the fine folks who bring you this magazine right here, Photoshop User Magazine, the only place where you can find Dave Cross every issue.
That's true, and this episode today is brought to you by iStock, CDW, Logitech, and DLO.
Welcome back, everybody. We we're in the missing man formation. Mr. Plaskowski is at a conference for learning how to do Steam tutorials, so he won't be with us this week, unfortunately. He's at a whole Steam Expo. Hey, I got to show you, for those of you who watched last week's show, if you watched last week's show, it was a bit of a calamity, I think is the best way to describe it. Well, Matt had done this tutorial about how to create Steam in Photoshop, and it kind of broke down in the middle of it, but he actually... It's a long story. Go back and watch last week's episode, and it will all become clear. Anyhow, one of our readers, named Steve Gilbert, was kind enough to send in this photo, inspired by last week's shot there. Take a look there. Very nice. Steamy. It's very steamy photo there. So this is actual unsolicited proof that the tutorials that Matt does show actually work. So there is someone adding steam to a totally appropriate photo. Well, welcome, everybody. Joining me, of course, once again, from Canada, which is a whole different country, Dave Cross.
Last time we checked. Welcome, everyone. It's good to be back once again.
Once again. Again, Matt is going to be on the road this week, but we will soldier on in his absence. A couple things. Let's see. I'm looking at my list of things. There's nothing there. There was something I wanted to say here, and I cannot remember what it is. So the only thing to do is to turn it over to Dave Cross, because this is exactly what we do. In an emergency, always throw to Dave. Dave, did you bring a tutorial?
No.
Okay, we're back to me. Hey,
no.
Next.
Actually, I do have a tutorial. And
I was counting on that, by the way.
We were kind of counting on that. And it's basically to take the built-in contact sheet you get out of Photoshop and just build on that, so every time you make a contact sheet from then on, you can just kind of make it look a little more interesting. So what we're going to do the first time is just run the contact sheet so we get all the sizing and everything. So I've got my photos. I have 12 photos here in Bridge, and I'm going to go to the Tools menu and Contact Sheet 2, which will bring up this dialog box where I decide I'm going to use the selected images. Now, the main thing you're going to have to do at this point is determine the size of the document. Excuse me. I'm deliberately making a little smaller than 8 by 10, and I've got my resolution set to 72 for the purpose of time today, but realistically, you probably want to do it a higher resolution if you're going to print this off on your printer. And I'm going to just leave everything as auto spacing. I've got 3 columns and 4 rows. Shows me a little preview over here on the right, but basically I'm just going to run this, so it'll just take a moment. It's going to go through all the images, and this is the main reason I did it at 72, so it didn't take too long. But what I'll end up with is a document with all the photos, the contact sheet photos, on a separate layer. And once that's done, then I can start using that to sort of build on that.
And these are self-portraits.
Yeah, sure. So if you look at my layers palette, you can see, here's what I'm talking about. Here's all the photos, it's one layer, but that's okay, because we're just going to use this to build on this. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to try and make this look perhaps a little more interesting for the future. So I'm going to go to my background layer, and I've already chosen a very dark gray, so I'm going to Command Delete on the Mac, Control Backspace on Windows to fill it with that dark gray, and then make a new layer. And I'll show you a finished one I have in a moment, because I don't want you to have to sit and painfully watch me do this whole thing, but I'll show you the basic ideas. We're going to try to make this look a little more interesting. I'm going to make a little selection here on this layer, which I'm going to fill with black. Now I want to make a whole series of those looking kind of like the little, what are those called? Sprockets? Is that what they're called on a film?
Where this is going, yeah.
Kind of like the old-fashioned contact sheet where you'd actually see the actual, whatever those little square things are called.
And by old-fashioned, you mean like 2.5 years ago? Yeah, a few years ago.
So basically, I'm just going to, let me actually tell you what I just did. I'm going to zoom in a little further, I think, to make this easier to see. I'm going to press Command-Option-T or Control-Alt-T. Normally press Command-T for free transform, but by throwing in the Option or Alt key, it lets me do one other thing, which you'll see in a moment, is make a copy. So I'm holding down two keys, Option or Alt, and Shift, because I want to make a copy of this square straight down on the same layer. So now I hit Enter to finalize that, and now I press basically the entire left side of my keyboard, Command-Option-Shift or Control-Alt-Shift-T, and each time I do, you're going to see this going to just repeat that over and over and over again. So basically, you're going to make a layer like that and then duplicate that. Now let me show you, for the sake of time, a finished version where I've done a couple things. I've added those little sprockets, I've added some black lines to divide, and I've also got little text layers that I've done that are, you know, that looks like the negatives where you see 1, 1A, 2, and 2A, and so on. And I've done these in a document where I still have all the type layers in these groups, so that if I decide later on to make a second contact sheet that's like going forward 13, 14, 15, and so on, it's very easy to do that. So this document, once you're finished, what you would do is this. Back here, let's pretend this is the one again I've been working on. Once I'm finished it, I would throw away the photos because they're only there for spacing purposes, and then save this as a template, which is basically what I've done over here on this document. Is I've got my nice little template all ready to go. So now, fast forward to the next time I want to make a contact sheet, I would do exactly the same thing. So I'm just going to run it one more time. And it's going to do the same thing. I'll just leave all the settings the same. And this is crucial that you don't, at this point, change any of the settings of the document, because it has to be the same size and the same resolution to work. So what I did, just for the sake of interest, is I created my template first at 300 pixels per inch. So I had a nice high resolution one that made a copy at 72. That way, depending on what I need to make with my contact sheet, I have a couple of different resolutions. So all I've got now is I've got my two templates saved at the two different resolutions. I run the contact sheet, and then all I have to do is take this layer, hold down the Shift key, drag over here, and it pops those in right to the right place.
Sweet.
And now I have a nice little contact sheet that looks more like a traditional contact sheet that's ready to use anytime I need it.
And then you can charge your customers for film.
Exactly.
So great.
Charge even more because it looks so much more like the old-fashioned way of doing things.
Absolutely.
So
well
there you
done,
go.
Mr. Cross. I like that.
Yeah, that was kind of an interesting way
That's
to
very
do that.
interesting.
And I should mention, by the way, that was inspired in part. I was looking through a book that Kevin Ames did, his book that has all about digital photography, and he'd mentioned about adding a logo to a contact sheet, and it just kind of tweaked in my mind what else could we do to make it look a little more interesting.
Very nice. I'll be stealing that immediately. Hey, I remember what it was that I wanted to talk about because,
Awesome.
well, I didn't actually remember. I looked on the list because Dave and I, and Matt, who of course is not here, he's at the STEAM conference, got to play with a very cool toy this week.
Yes,
the
we did.
Nikon D80. Of course, by now you've heard that last week Nikon announced a successor to the D70, which is the Nikon D80. And the day after it was announced, we got to play with one. And let me tell you, what a camera. I don't know how Nikon is possibly going to make these cameras fast enough because it was unbelievable. 10.2 megapixels. It's got the nice big, it's got the same size screen on the back as like the D200. It's got the, I think it's the 180-degree viewing range. Great features, great new menus, built-in stuff, cool as anything. And the body is only supposed to be under, what, 900 bucks, something around there.
Yeah.
So don't
Very
quote me on
interesting.
that because I don't know the exact price, but that's the word on the street. You can, of course, go to NikonUSA.com and check it out. And, of course, if you don't live in the USA, you might want to go to your local Nikon website instead of Nikon USA. So if you live in Canada, of course, you would still go to Nikon USA.
Right, because we don't have Nikon in Canada.
They don't have Nikon. Of course they do. So go to. Anyway. Hey, what a camera though! It was really awesome.
Oh yeah, it really was.
We
Really
had
nice.
a great time with it. We were, and it's got such a great feel. You know, it's just. I just can't imagine. It's going to be the hottest movie of the summer. No, it's going to be the hottest thing.
Put it
this
on your
holiday
Christmas
season.
list.
Absolutely. And now, of course, I just bought my wife a D70S a couple of weeks ago. So if you're looking for a really good deal on a D70S, I've got one. Okay. Hey, last week we took a bunch of the NAP crew down to Nassau in the Bahamas, and we were there for a little photo shoot. Hi, hey, we're the Photoshop guys. We're here down in Nassau in the Bahamas. We've got a photo shoot today, and of course here is Dave Cross.
Hey everyone.
Rocking the house skis, Matt Kloskowski. And sliding in between the Crossy and the Kloskowski, NAP's Executive Director Larry Becker. We went on a shoot this evening, and we came out to actually shoot the lighthouse that is over to our right. Let's see if the cameraman will pan over. Ah, lighthouse off in the distance. And
back here, cameraman.
back here, cameraman.
Back, cameraman.
All right. What was particularly nice was, as soon as we got our tripod set up, this huge freighter pulled in front of it, and waited there until the sun went down. And as soon as the freighter was sure that we had missed the shot, the freighter went off into the sunset.
We got a good shot of the freighter, though.
Yeah, we did get a good shot of the freighter. Well, if we got any shots, we're going to show them to you right now. But if we don't, it'll be just back to the studio. There you go. We got a couple of shots, and I happen to get, and I don't want to brag, but I happen to get, and I think that you will agree, the best shot of Matt Kloskowski in the world.
Now, I got to say, I know people they think this is a
Yeah,
setup.
they think it's going to be a joke.
You're going to set up with a
it's
joke picture,
fakey
but
joke
it's
thing.
not at all.
Honestly, it was one of those things. Matt was shooting. There was an abandoned boat, like you would find, of course, all over Nassau. No, just kidding. There's this abandoned boat. It was all completely rusty. And Matt is shooting out into the water. And I had just finished shooting on these rocks with Dave. And I've come over there, and he's shooting. And it was just a great background. It was just a phenomenal background. And so I said, now, so this shot isn't entirely posed. He was shooting on this background. He was shooting down towards the water. And I just said, hey, Matt, this looks great. Turn towards me. So he turned like a quarter turn towards me and then fully towards me. And what's great about this shot is, number one is, it would actually make a really good tutorial because it's a whole color correction thing. But the thing is the way Matt is holding the camera, it's perfectly symmetrical. Mm-hmm. So here's the photo right here. Take a look. See, that's a sweet.
That's a nice
photo. That's a nice photo of Matt. Now, I don't always take photos of guys like Matt, but he is my buddy. So and every time we go, he's always like, here's $20, man, take a good shot of me. But of course not. So anyway, this will be available for download, so you can add Steam to any part of No, it's not. But anyway, so I think this is like the Matt cool
now,
picture.
Can I show a photo that was taken by one of our crew? Because this is probably a photo you will not see very often. When you were taking the picture of Matt, I was taking a picture of you taking the picture of Matt.
Oh, yeah, that's
and
right.
Paul took a picture of me taking a picture of you taking a picture of Matt. So it's like this, kind of like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon or something.
Yes, it's good.
So
go ahead and show that now.
Here's that photo right now. You can see what I mean. It's pretty unusual.
Now, the funny thing is what we'd really gone, we went to this special beach to shoot this lighthouse. And we, of course, we waited till the good light because you don't want to shoot in rotten light because it's bad. So we all get there right at the right time for the sun to go down. We are literally there as the sun is setting on the lighthouse. We go to the beach. We get our tripod set up. We're all getting everything set up. And this is no kidding. Dave will vouch for this. Literally, as we are getting ready to take the shot, a freighter completely pulls in front of the lighthouse, stops there until the sun is completely down and the good light is gone, and then it goes away. We actually have a shot of the freighter, I think. Here's a shot of the freighter.
Yeah, it actually backed into the picture,
It backed
too.
into the
That wasn't-
picture.
that's
We
the
saw
other
it coming.
thing.
There was like, stop. We're yelling across the beach. Of course, it's 2.5 miles away, but we're yelling nonetheless. Anyway, here's a couple of quick, little snapshots that we got just for fun. We had a limited time to shoot, but here we got a couple of shots here. That's them there. All right. Back with you live. Hey, I got to tell you about one more thing. Speaking of shooting, there is a shoot that you're going to want to know about. It's called Going Wild with Moose Peterson. Now, Moose is one of the leading wildlife photographers in America, and he's put together this incredible thing. They're going to a zoo in Washington, and by Washington I mean Washington State, and they're going to basically have the run of the place to be able to shoot for 2 days inside this zoo. And what's great about now, it sounds like, oh, we're shooting in a zoo and stuff, but you're going to get access to be able to shoot animals at right up close. But there's more than that. It's not just Moose, of course, it is Moose's gig, but Moose is there, Joe McNally's there, and Matt, the steam maker Kloskowski, will actually be there. So you're going to be shooting both days, and you're also going to be working Photoshop at the same time. So that is coming up. You can go to their website. I have it right here, goingwild.org. Go check it out. Moose Peterson, Joe McNally, of course, Lori Excel will be there. The equipment lady, she just sold some stuff for me. Mm-hmm. I talked about Lori the other day, the equipment lady. She just sold a lens for me and a little viewing device. And I went and bought a Nikon 10.5 fisheye.
There you go.
Exciting stuff this is my life. Okay. Hey, so go check it out. Goingwild.org. It's coming up here in October, so there's a very, very limited number of seats. Go check it out. We'll be right back here in just a moment We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Dave Cross will still be here. We are back. Joining me, of course, Dave Cross.
Again?
A man barely alive. Still. Hey, speaking of Dave Cross, how's that for a segue? Dave Cross, you're on the road. You've got some seminars coming up.
I do have some seminars coming up. The Photoshop CS Power Tour, as we like to call it. Photoshop CS2 Power Tour. Going to Kansas City.
Missouri? Not the
Friday,
Kansas
September 22nd. It's actually the Kansas City Convention Center, so it's very confusing because don't know what state you're actually in. But it's in that area. And Baltimore.
Canadian thing. Americans know.
October 13th. And as always, you can go to PhotoshopSeminars.com for more details.
Hey, I'm on that same tour with Dave, and I've got a couple of dates coming up. They're way out there, so mark your calendars now. I'm in Los Angeles at the Los Angeles Convention Center in October on some day, I don't know. And then in November, I'm actually doing, well, is it November? No, I'm in November, I'm sorry. November, I'm in Los Angeles at the LA Convention Center. And then in December, I've got to go all the way to Honolulu and train there. God,
sure, if you don't think you're up to it, I can probably
I know, if I get sick, Dave, I'll be sure to send you if anything comes up. But if not, I'll just have to tough it out there in Honolulu. So I hope you'll join me this December. PhotoshopSeminars.com is the place to find out where myself and Dave and a host of other fine people. All right. Hey, I brought you a tutorial this week. My tutorial is using the Miyagi heat thing. No, my tutorial. Oh, my poor producer Pamela. Just, all she does the whole show is stand there and shake her head. It's not good. It's not. She is still shaking her head to this very moment. So,
on with the tip.
Should I change cameras? Okay. Okay. Hi, Eddie. It's my cameraman, Eddie. We call him Fast Eddie. I have no idea why. Okay, back to our story. I brought a tip for you. It's a series of tips on Camera Raw. Here they come. Little known. I like to call them little known tips on Camera Raw.
Is that because you made some of them up, or is it they all actually?
That's because nobody cares about these tips. That's why. These are the tips that no one cares about. All right. Actually, this first tip is kind of interesting because, there's been multiple versions of Camera Raw since it came out. So this particular tip has to do with how the preview function works. Okay, so the preview function lets you see the changes that you've made. So let's go ahead and make some changes to this photo ourselves. We'll just go ahead and increase the exposure a little bit, and let's increase the contrast a bit too. All right, so we've increased the exposure and the contrast, right? So, and let's just go ahead and change the white balance. What the heck? Let's just switch it to, how's daylight look? Lovely. Okay, so we've made a couple little tweaks. So we've changed the white balance, we've increased the exposure, we've tweaked the contrast a little bit. All right. Now, I turned the preview off. You see what it looked like with the defaults, and here's after my tweaks. By the way, there is a keyboard shortcut. Little known, Mr. Cross, by the way. You just press the letter P, and it toggles it back and forth. So, and you can see your little histogram change showing you the before and after. So we've made some changes there. Now, here's the weird thing. We're in the Adjust tab of Camera Raw. So let's say that now I go, all right, I want to increase the contrast, so I go to the Curve. All right. And let's go ahead and make a little curves adjustment while we're here. Well, you know what? While I'm here, I can give you another tip, by the way. When you've selected a curve point, another little known Camera Raw tip, you can move these curve points, and honestly, it's much easier to do it with the arrow keys on your keyboard. The up arrow key moves, of course, the point upward. The down arrow key moves it downward. However, that's for some very fine, tuning. The Shift key, if you hold the Shift key on your keyboard and then do it, it gives you the bigger moves. So there you go, like that. So let's just say that you wanted to add some really extreme contrast, which is what we've done here. All right. the preview now changes. You would think that the preview, when you turned it off, would show you what the photograph looked like before you opened it, right? But it doesn't. It only gives you a preview of the changes that you've made in this particular tab. So it's kind of a cumulative preview. So you're seeing what it looked like before you went to the curve tab, but not before you started adjusting the photograph. So that begs the question, Dave. That begs the question, Dave. How would you
see the original?
There we go. You know what?
Sorry.
It's a tightly scripted show. You'll have to go back to image settings, and boom. That's what it. So if you want to see what it looked like before the adjust tab and before the curves tab, that's how you do it. See, it's little things like that that are little known, and that changed between, I think, Camera Raw 2 and Camera Raw 3, something like that. Okay, so there's a little preview trick, and let's go back to our custom, which is where we are right now. There we go. There's our changes. Now, this next one is just kind of a little bit of a usability change. Now, if you're working on images here, of course, there's all kinds of things that you can do. But let's just say that I'm working on these images and I want a bigger preview. Let's choose a wider image, though, instead of this one here. Choose a wider image. So I want to get a bigger preview here. If you have multiple images open in Camera Raw like I do here, if you double-click right on this divider line, if you just double-click right on it, it'll tuck right out of the way temporarily. Those photos are still open. You can still toggle through them using the little arrow keys right here, so they are still there. But you want to get them back, you just double-click. But it just makes for, when you're looking at a wide image, it just makes for a much better way to do that. All right, the next tip is, there's a number of ways to watch your highlights so you don't blow out your highlights when you're adjusting exposure and brightness. For example, there's the highlight warning up here. So if I were to drag the exposure too high, all the red areas say these areas have turned to complete white. There is no more detail there. You've blown out the highlights. So that's one way of warning it, and some people find that really annoying. I mean, it is a warning device, but some people find it crazy annoying. Another warning device is to hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key and to just, as you drag, anything that appears is blown out. This is basically showing you that the red center of the neon there's not much detail there. It's just showing you that. And then the blue area is now blowing out, and now when it turns white, all of the colors are the RGB are all blown out. But there is another way that you can use sometimes. If you don't like either one of those and you want a quick look and you're wondering, is that area blown out or not? What you can do is just move your cursor over an area and look right up here. See where it says RGB? I'm going to zoom in real quick for those of you actually watching on an iPod. There's the RGB readouts right up there. If you want to see whether you have any detail or not, just move your cursor over there. If you start seeing things like 255, 255, 255, there's not much detail. You've completely blown out that area. There it is right there, 255. So you're looking at it and you're like, is that blue or is that white? My friends, that is white. And if you were to go turn on the highlight warning, you would instantly see, yep, bad things are happening. But anyway, there's the third way to look. And the last thing I want to show you is I showed you the tip for hiding this to get the better wide preview, and there's also the better tall preview. And that is because, there we go. That is because when you're working with tall images like this one, you want as much space as possible. I generally turn the workflow options off. This is something you don't deal with that much when you go to finally save the file or something. So if you turn this off, watch how much bigger it makes the preview. See your preview jump up in size, and it's easy to just toggle on. Since this is something that you're mostly going to probably not make a lot of adjustments to, it's going to be something you use kind of at the end of your process. Or you may set it and forget it. A lot of people pick their, they're going to embed Adobe RGB or ProPhoto, or they're going to leave it at 8 bits, whatever you're going to leave it at. Then you can just hide this most of the time. So there's a couple of little known Camera Raw tips just for your Camera Raw productivity and efficiency.
And your viewing pleasure.
And your viewing pleasure. Well, Dave, it's time to go to the news. Now, we have a special news person today.
That's correct.
Larry Becker, the Executive Director of the National Association of Photoshop Professionals, is here with today's Photoshop news.
Hey guys, thanks a lot. It's fun to be here in the Action News Center. And the first bit of Action News is about Katrine Eisman, a friend of ours who does wonderful Photoshop training. She is now going to be the chair of a new program, a Masters of Photography program. It's a one-year program, Masters of Professional Studies at the School of Visual Arts in New York. So now you'll be able to get an MPS from SVA and NYC ASAP. Also, we have the unofficial Photoshop weblog. Unfortunately, they have posted their last post. But the good news is the writer who has been behind all this, Jan Kabili, is now also still writing for the unofficial Apple weblog, but she's also starting a new blog that's going to be photoshoponline.tv. So, Jan, good luck with your new Photoshop efforts. Also, Hall of Fame is coming up now at the Photoshop World event in September in Las Vegas. We're actually going to have the Hall of Fame presentation, but we've already made the announcements who's involved in the Hall of Fame. The winners are Eddie Tapp, Jeff Shiwi, and Jean-Paul Campanegro. So that'll be a real big event, and I'm sure the guys will want to tell you a little bit more about that. On Photoshop Tour, Photoshop on Tour with Photoshop, Deke McClellan is doing the Mastering Photoshop CS2 tour, and he's coming up with a couple of dates, one in St. Louis on September 25th, I think that's a Monday, and also on the 28th he'll be in Boston. We have a super special for Photoshop TV viewers. It's a Dave Cross video. You know him, you love him, get his video. The video is Photoshop CS2 for beginners, and check that out at photoshopvideos.com. And that's it for the Action News. We're going to return to Photoshop TV right after this brief message.
All right, thanks, Larry, for the news there. That was...
You're welcome.
Hey! Look, it's Larry Becker right here, Executive Director of the National Association of Convenient Photographers. Their motto is, we only shoot 50 feet from our car. Okay, no, he's the Executive Director in NAP, and we figured since he's doing the news and he's a Photoshop, dude, not a Photoshop guy.
No.
He's a Photoshop dude.
Never mistaken for it.
Hey, I like that, though. You could
Photoshop
be the
dude?
Photoshop dude.
Okay.
Okay, anyway. Anyway, so, if you come on the show, of course, we make you do that. But hey, before we have Larry do his Larryisms, you mentioned the Photoshop Hall of Fame.
Right.
Hey, the Photoshop Hall of Fame is a really cool thing. It's something that NAP started a number of years ago, and it's basically designed to honor and recognize the people who have influenced the Photoshop community, and it includes teachers and engineers, and of course, I mean a who's who of Photoshop has been inducted, and of course this year we have three very, very special people who are gifted instructors and artists in their own right, all three of them. So very, very cool stuff. The Photoshop. Yeah. You can go to PhotoshopHallOfFame.com. You mentioned that to learn more about it.
Right. See the past winners as well as this year.
Yes. People like Thomas Knoll, who wrote Photoshop, one of the inductees there.
And people at Photoshop World are actually going to see them in person.
Yeah, they're going to see them in person and see their induction ceremony. There actually is a ceremony where they're inducted. It gives kind of a retrospective of their life and all that. It's very cool. It's a neat part of the Photoshop World experience. All right, well, Mr. Becker, you brought us a tip, did you?
I brought you a whole bunch of tips, all piled together to look like one tip, but it's actually multiple tips in a tip.
I like that.
All right, so here we go. It's all about black and white. So I've been working with photo restoration recently, and I started on a project where I was doing a bunch of old photos from the scrapbooks at my mom and dad's house. And when I found a bunch of these old photos, I started scanning them in, and I realized I had a crappy scanner. So I got in touch with Epson, got an Epson Perfection V750 Pro. Yeah, it's a sweet scanner.
Pro.
Yeah, it's a Pro scanner, yes. And very cool software. And so you got to start with a good scanner. Once you get your images, go ahead and scan them in, even if you're doing black and white, and I'm about to show you. We've got an image that is black and white, and this image, I scanned it in color even though it's a black and white image. And the reason that you do that, you get a lot more information when you scan black and whites in color. So go ahead and scan it in color, high resolution. Don't max out the res on the scanner. And once you get the image in, this is an image of a cute little kid on his favorite tree. This would be my favorite tree in my backyard.
That's you, isn't it?
When I was 4, yes.
You can still tell.
Yes.
Because you hang around the office like that a lot of times. You go by Larry's office. He's on the tree branch again. Yeah.
Okay, so what I used to do, I learned a tip a long time ago that if you have a washed out faded photo like this, a lot of times what you can do is just Command-J on a Mac, Control-J on a PC, jump it up to its own layer, and change the layer blending mode to multiply. And that gives you a little bit of a, well, in this case, it's not too great. It over darkens it. And then what I would do is change the opacity. But that's not really the best effect, so I'm going to take that and throw it away. The best way to do this with this particular image is go ahead and I'm going to put an adjustment layer that is curves. And if you want your curves to have more guidelines in here, just Alt-click on a PC, Option-click on a Mac. And I'm going to put 2 control points on the curve. And the steeper the curve, the better the contrast shows up in the image. So that helps an awful lot. The image looks a lot better already.
That's quite a steep curve, Larry.
Yes, it is a steep curve, but it was a very faded photo.
Yes, it is.
It was an ugly photo. So, so that's it. Click OK. And you can always go back and adjust that because it's an adjustment layer. And then the other thing would be to go ahead and sharpen the image quite a bit. And we'll do that with, let me put it on its own layer. And then filter, unsharp mask. I did this before. And you'll want to set your own settings, but I've already tested this, so I'm just going to go back to where it was before, unsharp mask. And it makes it a nice sharp image. And finally, you'll want to go ahead and make your image into grayscale from color, because this one has a little bit of a color cast to it. And before you actually just go up and choose image mode grayscale, which does evil bad things, go ahead and throw another image adjustment layer on. And this one should be gradient map. And the gradient map kind of does some bad things, makes my dark stuff a little bit too dark. Click in the middle of the gradient map, click, let me bring that onto screen so you can see it. Click the end point here and you can see it shows a marker for the midpoint, and we want to lighten that midpoint just a bit. And that makes the darks a little less intense. Click OK, OK again, and so we've done all this. And the original is there, and then the changed version is here. And there we have it. So that's it. So the collection of tips is really get a good scanner to start with, and also definitely you want to scan in color even though you're scanning black and white, and then use things like curves rather than just multiply to add back some of that contrast.
Excellent.
And sorry, Larry, one tip that you mentioned in passing, I think is really important, is to scan at a higher resolution. Many people think because they're putting on their website, they don't need to scan it that high, but it's so hard to retouch and fix things if it's too small. So start off with a bigger scan and then reduce it down once you're done doing all your retouching.
And when you do all the sharpening, it's so much nicer.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Larry.
My pleasure.
It was really wonderful to have you here.
And it was wonderful being here.
Let's do this again soon. All righty. Well, hey, got a couple things to mention. Of course, we have our contest coming up. Before that, Photoshop World is right around the corner. And, of course, we'll be there. Larry will be there, of course, because he is the executive director of the Fine.
I'm one of the fine.
He's one of the fine people. The National Association. Okay. Anyway, we're going to be at Photoshop World. It's coming up. If you haven't signed up, thousands of people already have. We are on a absolute record-breaking pace to make this the biggest Photoshop World ever. I hope you'll join us in Las Vegas, September 7th through 9th at the Mandalay Bay Casino and Resort. Now, I just want to let you know that although it is in Las Vegas, we're there for business. We're there to work, work, work. So when you're there, I don't expect that you will be visiting the casinos or swimming in the pools or going to In-N-Out Burger or any of the fun things that you can do in Las Vegas. You will be in class working.
Right. Even at night, you'll be in your hotel room.
Even at night, you'll be practicing the things that you learned during the day. So
I'm signed up for the Steam track.
Yeah, there is a Steam track. Of course, Matt, of course, heads the Steam track. Poor Matt. He's going to wish that he was in town, let me tell you. Anyway, but we hope you'll join us there. Of course, we'll be filming a live episode of Photoshop TV from right there. And, of course, I'm teaching. Dave's teaching. Larry's working.
I'm watching.
Larry's watching. No, Larry's working. Larry's part of the keynote and a whole host of other things. Larry is everywhere at Photoshop World. And if you come to Photoshop World, please stop by and say hi to us. If you see us cruising around the hallway, say hi. We love to meet our viewers and stuff. In fact, since we're in a studio, it's the only time we get to meet our viewers. So please, we're so lonely. Say hi as you see us in the hall. Especially Matt. Poor Matt.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he thrives on that stuff. So if you see Matt, just say, hey, dude, rocking the house ski. All right. Anyway, it's contest time. Now, the keeper of the contest, of course, is Mr. Dave Cross.
Right. Well, first of all, let's address last week's contest. And we asked the question that when you go into the file menu, there's a list of recently viewed documents. How do you make that list longer? And the answer is in the preferences. You can set up to 30 in that list, which by default is 10. And from the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of entries, I'm sure, we picked this person as the winner. Yay for them.
Person.
Now, I'm guessing that this week we have prizes to give away.
Hey, that was a nice edit. Don't you love the post-production thing? What we really needed was prizes to actually hold in our hands. Like this. Wow, awesome. Whoa, great. Hey, cool.
Well, what do you have there, Scott?
Why? Mine is my brand new book, the digital photography book. It will be out here. We'll have them at Photoshop World. It's a brand new book. It is not a Photoshop book. It is a photography book for digital photographers, not for pro photographers, but for people who want to take better pictures. And it was inspired by the fact that I get emails from people all the time that said, I had this point-and-shoot camera. It was 3 megapixels, and I was really disappointed with my photos. And now I have a 6 or 8 megapixel camera, and now I'm really disappointed with 6 and 8 megapixel cameras.
I've been waiting for this book, Scott.
It's been a lot of great fun to write this book. Tons of cool stuff in there. It's all tips, one thing per page, and it's like one of the record-breaking pre-orders for my
Wow!
book. So
Congratulations!
Awesome. Very, very excited. You can pre-order this at Amazon.com or at ScottKilbyBooks.com or BarnesandNoble.com or any.com, anywhere. Every place sells it in the world. So you'll get that as one of our prizes. Dave, what do you have there?
Oh, I have Layers. Sorry, it was a very interesting article. I just had to stop and read. Layers subscription to Layers magazine.
Layers magazine.
Lucky winner of the how-to magazine for all things Adobe.
And who writes in that magazine?
All sorts of people, many of whom I've heard of.
Like Dave Cross, Matt Kloskowski, Scott Kelbykowski. Larry, what have you got?
I have the best of Photoshop TV DVD.
Ooh, that was a tongue twister.
Pretty
And
technical.
as a special third secret fourth bonus,
Secret.
a full conference pass to the Photoshop World Conference in Las Vegas. So you get all of these prizes and the conference pass if you answer Dave's super secret question.
And you know what? It just occurred to me. There's actually in that secret fourth prize, there's a secret fifth prize, because if you're not already a NAP member, you become a NAP member when you get
How does he
the
do
conference
it? That's
pass.
right.
So
The conference pass comes with a full NAP membership.
So there we go. So I'm going to show you a graphic. This is from one of the palettes in Photoshop where they all say palette options. You got to say, what palette is this from? That shows this palette options dialog box. And to enter this, enter once as always. Go to PhotoshopTV.com and look for the link where you can enter the contest.
Steam palette.
The Create Steam palette? No. Okay. Hey, speaking of that, you probably wouldn't know this if you haven't been to Photoshop World before, but let's say that you are not a NAP member. You're just like a regular person living life in a regular kind of way. So you're not a special person like a NAP member. You're just a regular person.
Who would be
But
that?
you long to be special. If you sign up for Photoshop World, included in your conference price is a full 1-year membership to NAP, which includes a subscription to Photoshop User Magazine. So,
And all the discounts. So from then on, any event of ours, anything we do, you can sign up and get a discount. So
it's crazy. Well, my friends, we like to end every show with giving you 3 important things to do. So you'll have something to do between this week's show and next week's show. Number 1 is I will start.
Start.
Larry, you give yours first. Just kidding. Larry doesn't have one. It's just me and Dave. So Larry is just here, seriously, as eye candy. Okay, so first is John Paul Campernegro, one of the inductees to the Photoshop Hall of Fame, just relaunched his website. Now, go to his website, johnpaulcampernegro.com. Of course, we'll put the link on our website and right here below us. But great website, phenomenal. Oh, he's just an incredible artist, incredible photographer. And he's got tutorials and downloadable PDFs, and so it's an education site, a resource, and just incredible artwork. Go check it out. He just revamped the site. Definitely worth a visit.
Right. And I have a website. If you're a Nikon user and or shooter, go to Nikonians.org. Now, from what I can tell, it's also
site.
.com, and it's run by people who just love using their Nikon cameras. There's all sorts of discussion forums and tutorials and news and all kinds of stuff. So if you're into the Nikon world, check this out for sure.
Also, lastly, now this one's kind of cool. It's a website that actually Pamela turned me onto, and she turned our whole graphics department onto. It's called, and if you don't know who Pamela is, she's our executive producer and also in charge of this.
That's her.
That is her. That's my best imitation there. Anyway, back to you live. It's called RateMyDrawings.com. This is the most clever thing.
Cool.
Our whole graphics department is hooked on this. In fact, they don't do any work anymore. They just spend their days at rate. You go there and it's a flash console. They have a little program. You sign on for free, and all you sign on, and you actually draw. You draw using their tools on the website using a flash console, and then when your drawing is complete, people rate how they like your drawing. It is amazing the stuff that's on there. But what's even cooler is the animation that they play. You get to see the drawing go, like if you go to look at someone's drawing, you see the thing being created. And it has this giant pencil. You just got to go there. It sounds funky. It is so cool. Go check it out, ratemydrawings.com. Well, my friends, we've come to the end of another episode. Thankfully, we're ready to pull the plug on this episode. But next week, we'll be back for more. For more Photoshop TV, on behalf of myself and Larry Becker.
Bye, everybody.
And our good friend Dave Krause.
Bye, everybody.
And the missing man, Matt Kloskowski. We'll see you guys next week. Well, maybe not. Right here on Adobe Photoshop TV.
Thanks for watching Adobe Photoshop TV. See you next week.